on this head-spinning episode of MythBusters. Adam and Jamie fire up a fearsome explosive.
That's one way to cut up a watermelon.
As they test a military myth.
You're not nervous about making the shot, are you?
That C4 is a serviceable cooking fuel.
It's not bad.
But if subjected to heavy-hitting action,
oh, it's on its shoe.
Creates a culinary catastrophe.
There it goes, pouring right onto the C4.
Meanwhile, Carrie, Grant, and Tori
chin up, buddy. Gonna be over before you know it.
mull a martial arts myth that a fabled flying guillotine
Somebody's losing a finger on this shoe.
can decapitate and capture your cranium.
You ready? Let's do this.
Who are the MythBusters? Adam Savage
70% chance of science.
and Jamie Heineman.
We're gonna have an adventure.
Between them, more than 30 years of special effects experience. Together with Tori Belleci,
Wasn't ready for that one, Carrie.
Grant Imahara, and Carrie Byron.
Let's do it.
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test.
What's with the stove?
It is our next story.
It's about cooking?
Sort of. It is a military myth, and it's about replacing your normal cooking fuel with something usually considered far more destructive.
With explosives?
Not just any explosive, your favorite.
Well, that'd be C4.
Exactly. The myth is that C4 is so stable, you can light it with a match and it will burn and cook your lunch.
And it doesn't explode.
It won't. Although, you're told not to stomp on it or drop your pot on it, because that could make it blow up.
Well, that would make for some hot chili.
Indeed.
C4, not just the explosive of choice for the MythBusters,
When in doubt, C4.
but also the military. But can C4's power be used another way to cook with without exploding?
That's great.
Well, there's two parts to this story. One is that supposedly you can light C4 on fire and it will burn without blowing up. And the second is that you better not drop a pot on it or stomp on it while it's on fire, because that could make it blow up. I think we should test both of those.
Sure.
So to find out if this myth is cooking with gas or just a flash in the pan, the guys head to the safety of, you guessed it, a bomb range.
Now, before we get down to the business of testing this myth, let's reacquaint ourselves with C4, shall we? For this is not simply a stable, high-speed explosive in a plastic medium that you can mold into the shape of a bunny and blow up. Oh no, this is versatile stuff. Let's take a look at a simple C4 detonation.
This is why the military likes C4. It can make things go away.
That's one way to cut up a watermelon.
But C4's got a whole lot of practical uses too.
Next time you see this, it's gonna have a hole in it.
Even just 1 ounce packs a real punch.
Wow!
That would be a hole, through and through.
But it's also a precision device too.
This piece of metal bent into a W shape is going to cut this bar cleanly in half. That's right, W stands for whoopah! That is beautiful. Look at that nice clean cut.
I could do a little better with the saw, but it does indeed work.
Now that we've seen how it detonates, it's time to tackle our story, which simply stated is that this stuff, C4 plastic explosive, is stable enough to actually light on fire and heat your lunch with, that it will not blow up even if you set it on fire. That's what we're about to test.
Okay, why might burning C4 explode? Well, heat causes molecules to become excited. The greater the heat, the more the molecule mania. And that can cause instability and possibly an explosion. So from the safety of their bunker and ignited by a remote neon transformer,
You ready? Igniting C4, seeing if it burns without blowing up. In 3, 2, 1. Yep.
Burning. Wow. It's really burning.
It burns hot.
but blowing up it ain't.
I don't think I'd want to be next to that. I don't care what they say.
The C4 burned at more than 1,000 degrees, rapidly, and without a kaboom. That's very good news for this myth, so far.
Now that we know it burns, let's see how well it cooks.
Meanwhile, Grant, Carrie, and Tori are attempting to wrap their heads around a mysterious martial arts myth.
All right, Carrie, what's with the cool costume?
Take a deep breath. We're doing a kung fu myth.
Yes! Which one?
The flying guillotine.
Oh, I love that movie. Yes, that's the one where the guy has his weapon. It's like a hat. He throws it over the other guy's head, and he pulls the chain, and it decapitates him.
Calm down. Yeah, and not only that, but once you cut the head off, you can actually retrieve the head back to the thrower.
Well, I think the cool thing is that this might be more than a movie myth. This might be an actual ancient weapon. It could work.
Made famous by B-grade kung fu movies, the flying guillotine was a disc that, when thrown over the neck, would decapitate and capture the victim's head. But it might not just be a filmmaker's fantasy, because legend has it, Emperor Yongjung commissioned the device in 1722. But unfortunately for the MythBusters, no drawings of the design survive.
Okay, what a terrifying concept. Assassins that can behead you from a distance?
Yeah, but you know what? The real problem right now is finding a design. I mean, we've been through all these history books and found nothing. I mean, the only designs come from the movies themselves. I mean, we're on our own on this one.
All right, well, why don't we come up with some prototypes? We can incorporate some ideas from the movies and come up with our own ideas and see which works best.
So we might actually get to design our own flying guillotine. This is awesome.
So in order to test whether the mythical flying guillotine was a viable assassination weapon, they're going to divide and compete to see if they can design their own flying guillotine based on 4 parameters.
1, enough power to cut the head off. 2, it has to be light enough to be thrown. 3, it has to be safe enough to be deployed without cutting your own fingers off. And 4, you have to have some means to retrieve the head.
With each of them working alone, it's going to test the team's prototyping skills to the limit.
Now, when you actually think about what we're trying to accomplish here, this is no trivial task. We're trying to make a lightweight device that flies through the air and decapitates someone. Now, a traditional guillotine gets its cutting force from the fact that we have a massive blade traveling a long distance to create enough force to chop a head off. We have to make our devices lightweight, and we only have about 6 inches of travel to create that same sort of force.
In their respective corners of the shop, the guys begin by playing with ideas and concepts that may or may not work.
All right, so I had a great idea for a flying guillotine. I asked the researchers to find me a bear trap. Hopefully this would have enough energy to actually crush through a person's head. Clearly there's enough force, but throwing this through the air could be problematic.
First up, Tori's chosen to meddle with metal with a scissor-cutting design.
Before I start building this in steel, I want to make sure my design for the flying guillotine works. So I'm going to build a prototype with foam core, make sure it works, and then I'll move on to the steel.
Meaning it's going to be a try-it-and-see kind of process.
Yeah! Sometimes in the design process, you just have to get in there and get your hands dirty. Because there are no historical documents, no blueprints, no plans for a flying guillotine, we're just gonna have to figure this out as we go, which is gonna mean a lot of trial and error. Probably mostly error.
And that's immediately clear from Carrie's first fiddle with a fan from an air conditioning duct.
I've been trying this, complicated iris design, but it's too complicated. It's hard to use, it's getting heavy, and I just don't think it's gonna work.
So it's back to square one for Carrie. And likewise, on Belechi's bench, this lethal-looking scissor prototype he's made is also a dud.
My flying guillotine doesn't work at all. I mean, it kind of looks cool, but if you put something inside of it, that's the safest place to be.
Despite the pressure of their early designs failing on several fronts, the guys aren't deterred.
I'm gonna have to come up with a whole new design.
After all, learning from your failures is all part of the prototype process, which is exactly what Carrie does by opting for a far simpler concept.
Picture cigar cutter. Basically just have a blade on the rim of the hat that goes Takes head right off.
Meanwhile, using an authentic Qing Dynasty design app, Grant has decided simpler is not better.
Now, what you need in order to cut someone's head off with the blade is speed and power. Now, we've got this ring that's supposed to go over someone's head, but that doesn't leave a lot of space for the blades inside of it to accelerate. So my solution is to actually cock the blades all the way back and let them swing out and around. So they have more time to accelerate, and by the time they actually hit flesh, they'll be going fast enough to do some damage.
Ingenious, over-engineered, and lethal.
That's how Batman does it.
With his lawnmower of death sporting 5 highly sprung cutting blades, Grant's ready to pull the pin. That was close.
Okay, this could be the most dangerous experiment we've ever worked on. Forget car crashes, explosions, guns. Ah! Fire! Somebody's losing a finger on this shoot.
Don't cry wolf, Carrie, because then you're gonna get hurt and no one's gonna rush to help you.
Can you cook your goose safely using C4? The military myth says you can, and Jamie and Adam are hot on the trail to find out.
It's really burning.
So far, they've seen it does burn, but that's not all.
Let's just pause and take a moment here to recognize that we just ignited a high explosive and burned it, and it didn't blow up. This is gonna be fun.
Given this is a military myth, they're going to use a ready-to-heat and eat military meal.
All right, time to choose what we're gonna cook.
So what's for dinner, Chef?
Well, we've got 4 choices. Spaghetti with meat sauce, pork sausage with cream gravy, Southwest-style beef and black beans with sauce, or my personal favorite, the brisket entree.
I'll go with pork. We always go with pork in these explosive experiments, don't we?
Done, let's do it. Here you go.
Okay.
So, menu sorted. They'll pop an Army pork packet in water and use C4 to try to heat it.
So what's for dinner is an MRE, a meal ready to eat. It's standard Army issue. And there are these little packets that have your entire meal. All you do is put them in some water and heat the water, and you've got your food.
So all that's left to do now is retire to a safe distance and light the C4.
We're good to go.
Here we go, cooking lunch with C4 in 3, 2, 1. We have ignition. It's burning beautifully.
Again, the C4 burns vigorously. It gets extremely hot, but burns out extremely quickly. And that's not a good combination for a cooking fuel.
Wow, and that's it. It's like 2 minutes, it burns out.
Yeah, it burns vigorously, but a little too quickly. Let's see how hot we got the food.
Indeed, the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Eating food cooked with C4. It's not bad, but it's not hot.
No, it's kind of warm.
You know, they make fuels for heating up MREs.
That probably worked better than this did.
Well, we should test that.
Okay.
With the C4 cooked MRE barely lukewarm, the guys now want to scientifically test how C4 compares with 3 other commercially available cooking fuels. After all, if other fuels are better, why would a soldier even resort to using C4?
So these are our cooking fuels. There are tablets that you might normally use while camping made of hexamethylene tetramine. There's a trioxane tablet, which is issued by the military for their rations. And there is chafing dish fuel, which is basically an alcohol.
Each of the fuels will be ignited simultaneously, and each will then attempt to do its best to heat up an identically sized pot of water. This is comparative cooking test for fuels, including C4, in 3, 2, 1, go.
The neon transformer simultaneously sparks up all 4 fuels, each of which weighs 1 ounce.
C4 is definitely going.
Yeah, they're all going. Now we wait.
Now we wait.
But that wait isn't long, as the C4 burns itself out in 2 minutes.
C4's water is at 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything else is burning along merrily.
Closely followed by the trioxane, the fuel of choice by the military.
All right, trioxane got up to 120 degrees.
And then the hexamethylene tetramine.
Ho, ho, ho! 149 degrees Fahrenheit.
Finally, the chafing dish.
Oh, a measly 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So how did our C4 do in the cooking fuel cook-off? Not badly. By this chart here, we can see that one of our fuels, hexamethylene tetramine, did a spectacular job, heating the water to a piping hot 149 degrees. The other two, the chafing dish fuel and trioxane, heated within a couple of degrees of C4, and you'll note C4 did the job a lot faster. That tells me it not only burns, it is a viable cooking fuel.
Carrie, Grant, and Tori are going kung fu crazy, testing the myth of the Chinese flying guillotine.
You think cutting my head off will kill me?
With no historical blueprints to work from, they have to design their own modern prototypes to test the weapon's viability. Their first set of designs were uniformly successful at failing.
That's the safest place to be.
But a reacquaintance with the drawing board has the MythBusters on a more successful, if somewhat scary, track.
That's pretty good. It's all coming together.
Tori's latest idea is as clever as it is potentially deadly.
This one is a very simple design. It's a steel ring, sharpened, but then there is a groove on the outside of the ring that I have wrapped this cable around. And as I start pulling, one, it's gonna be pulling the sharp edge into the neck, but as the cable starts unraveling, it's gonna start spinning the ring, hopefully giving me the motion that I need to cut through that neck. Let's see if it works.
Okay, stand back, everyone, because Tori's ready to take his brutal saw disc for a spin.
Dude, that looks like it worked great.
All right, well, it cut through foam. I wonder what it's gonna do to a neck.
Good question, because last time there was a decent MythBusters decapitation, it took more than 4,000 joules to do the deed. Meanwhile, Carrie's pondering process is paying off too.
What I've come up here with now is a kitchen knife on top of a saw blade that's at an angle, sort of like a traditional French guillotine. 2 out of 3 headless Frenchmen say it's the best. That will work on either a spring load or a really good yank.
To test the cigar cutter, Carrie's rigged a rubber leg in a vise to see if she can get a clean cut.
You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Okay, maybe not.
It looks like it works pretty good to me. It just takes a few yanks.
Okay, it's hardly a clean cut, and it sure ain't a real neck. But for Carrie, it's a head start.
I'm impressed.
Finally, despite a near involuntary appendectomy, Grant has persevered with his beautifully designed but alarmingly heavy 5-bladed mechanism.
Okay, it's armed. That was, believe it or not, the most dangerous part of my day.
You look like you're ready to test. I watched you load this thing.
Okay. All right, here it comes.
Oh my God, I hope this works. That is insanity.
Okay, keep your arms and legs clear of the ride at all times. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
I feel a little queasy, I gotta say.
Me too.
Like a red-hot guillotine through ice cream, the cantaloupe's no match for Grant's fearsome fruit slicer. With the cutting component looking good for each of the 3 designs,
Flying guillotine.
there's one thing left to sort out: the net to capture the head.
I know this looks like a guillotine cap, but it's actually a salad bowl. That's right, death by salad bowl. So far, so good.
Carrie's concentrated on decoration for decapitation.
He looks like he's all dressed up for a funeral. His own.
Not to be outdone, Grant's final head capture feature is also very catchy.
I added this cage, which allows you to connect all the pins together to this disc with a spring. You deploy the one spring that fires all the blades at once, and then this cage also captures the head for retrieval. It's done. I call it the Decapitron.
So there are now 3 working prototypes: the dangerous Decapitron, Carrie's gorgeous cigar cutter, and Tori's salad bowl of death. Can these flying guillotine weapons cut it in the real world?
All right, you guys ready to head off?
Yeah, let's test this flying guillotine.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Oh, boy.
Could the mythical Chinese flying guillotine have been a real assassin's weapon? What better place for Carrie, Grant, and Tori to test their own designs than in a genuine Chinese garden?
I don't think we could have picked a better environment. This is awesome.
All right, now that we've each designed and built our own flying guillotine, we are here at Bamboo Giant to test 3 things in order to confirm this myth. First, its throwability. Second, can it decapitate a head? And if so, can it retrieve the severed head?
Up first is throwability testing. But with safety in mind, the weapons won't be armed.
This is our target. We have a head on a stick. We're gonna see if we can actually land our flying guillotine with accuracy and ease. And we're going to do it from a distance of about 10 feet, which is about as far as you would be if you had to deploy your device.
Each of the guys will take turns to throw. First up, it's Carrie with her designer cigar cutter.
Okay, this is the throwing test. Ready?
All right, we're looking for a ringer.
The cigar cutter flies,
Well, you got us feet.
but on throw 1, it's way short of the mark. Grant's next. His unwieldy Decapitron's not exactly an aerodynamic masterpiece.
My design, it weighs in at a good 7 or 8 pounds. So as a secondary weapon, I'm relying on blunt force trauma.
Yep, and the first throw backs that up.
Oh, super close.
That's another miss. So it's Tori's turn.
So mine's pretty light, and it's kind of shaped like a Frisbee, so it's gonna be easy to throw. Whether or not I can hit my target, that remains to be seen. All right, spinning salad bowl of death. You guys ready?
Let's see it.
That's 3 throws and 3 no's, which isn't good news for the myth. Can Carrie do better in round 2?
Ready?
This time she nails it.
Good job.
Not to be outdone, Grant's beheading behemoth scores a direct hit too.
You got it.
Oh, that was awesome. All right, so I was a little worried about the throwability of my guillotine just because it is so heavy. But it turns out that it's actually pretty throwable. I hit the target in 2.
Tori's second go. The salad bowl soars. It's over. It's 3 for 3 in the throwing stakes. The myth may still be alive. On the benchmark tests so far, they've all ticked the throwability box. Next, it's weapons cocked and loaded to see if their guillotines can achieve a decent decapitation. This is where the metal meets the mannequin. Their target is a pig's neck married to a synthetic head.
My favorite part of every show.
It's very anatomically correct.
Oh,
If we could just keep his head on.
oh, it's even more of a horror show than usual.
They'll each get 1 shot at decapitation.
This is my flying guillotine. It is based on the traditional guillotine. Now, they've been using this sort of technology for hundreds of years to behead people, so I'm hoping with a little bit of strength and a little quickness, I might actually be able to pull a head off.
Without the weight or acceleration of a traditional guillotine,
Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah. Ready.
hers relies on brute pulling power.
Oh,
Did it work?
It looks like it cut a little of the bone in the skin, but it more pulled the head off than really cut through the neck.
Tori's right. It was, in fact, more dislocation than decapitation.
It cut trachea, it cut a little of the skin, it cut a little of the bone, but it did not get a clean decapitation.
Grant's deadly Decapitron is next.
Mom, don't watch this part. This is definitely the most dangerous part of it, which is arming the device because it's all spring-loaded. If something goes wrong, it could actually fire all the blades off at once while I'm holding it.
With his hyper-engineered Decapitron, Grant's design has a minor flaw. He has to pull vertically upward for his cable to release the blades.
Geez, I think that might be more dangerous for the thrower than the receiver.
And that means he needs a ladder to launch.
That thing is insane.
Hardly a handy assassin's weapon.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Now that's a pain in the neck.
Oh, that was cool.
Ouchie.
Despite being feared by melons across the land, when it comes to necks, it's only cut skin deep.
Not a clean decapitation.
And that leaves just Tori's salad bowl of death still on the menu.
Not only is he a kung fu master, he is also a beekeeper.
All right, ready to chop some heads?
Where did you get a gong?
We had one in the shop.
Ooh, fight! All right, here we go. Flying guillotine in 3, 2, 1.
That was gruesome.
Gruesome, but impressive.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It cut through.
Like halfway
Got
at
halfway
Yeah.
through.
God, look at that. It cut through the bone.
And the trachea and the carotid artery and wow, it did a lot more damage than I expected. That is promising.
And that means Tori's is clearly the most promising of the three designs. It's light, it's sharp, and simple enough that it could have been built in 1700s China. Oh, and what about head retrieval, you ask? Simple. With no decapitation, there can be no retrieval. That one's still to be tested.
Now for the decapitation capabilities of our flying guillotines. We're a little all over the place. Grant's machine had such promise, it didn't quite cut through the neck. Mine, not even a chance, only slightly through the spine. But Tori showed some promise. That spinning blade actually made it almost through the neck. I think if we work on this design, we might have a real flying guillotine.
Part 1 of the C4 cook-off myth is confirmed. C4 can make a stable, reliable fuel.
Burning beautifully.
So it's on to part 2. If that flaming C4 gets some sort of impact, will it lose its stability and explode to kingdom come?
An explosion is a chemical reaction, and heat tends to speed up chemical reactions. So it makes sense that if you're burning an explosive, it's going to make it more sensitive. So if we happen to be cooking with C4, and what we're cooking with weighs, say, 7.5 pounds, and it drops on the burning C4, you might have a problem.
With the heavy pot raised to a height of 3 feet above the C4, it will stop with a force of 150 pounds. It's time for the drop test.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready if you are.
I am. All right, I'm going to ignite the C4 in 3, 2, 1. We have ignition. Let's let it get nice and hot.
Once the C4 is burning fiercely, they'll drop the heavy pot on it to see if it explodes.
This is a full pot dropped on flaming C4 in 3, 2, 1, go.
They just put it out.
Well, you know what they say.
A watch pot doesn't explode.
No, a drop pot doesn't explode. Thanks for ruining my joke.
It seems that even alight, the C4 is still too stable for a 7-pound pot to prompt an explosion.
Well, the myth is that pot dropped on flaming C4 will make it go off, and we got a perfect landing. No explosion. I don't even see the C4. Wait a second. There it is. No explosion at all. Right now, it's not looking very good for the myth.
Well, that didn't work. What's next?
Well, I've heard two parts to this. One is that you shouldn't drop a pot on the flaming C4, but the other is that you shouldn't try and stamp it out.
Stomping on burning C4. Well, I'm not going to do that. You can do that if you want.
Well, thanks, but no thanks. I've actually worked on the perfect thing. Editors, roll the montage of my robot stomper build.
Okay, here's what Adam made earlier.
Ow!
A pneumatically powered stomping robot.
I think he's ready for prime time.
He certainly is.
There we go. Powering up the man. Perfect.
Now for the second impact test, with Adam's robot designed to accurately replicate the force of a human stomp. Will that set off an explosion when it hits the burning C4?
So the question is whether this shoe stomping on a burning explosive is going to be more effective at setting it off than dropping a cast iron pot on it. On the one hand, this shoe with its pneumatics has a lot more power than a dropped pot. But on the other hand, the sole of the shoe is a lot softer, so I'd say it's anybody's guess.
Well, to take out the guesswork,
That ought to do it.
the first step is C4 ignition.
Make it like a nice toasty marshmallow.
And then step 2 is to fire up Robo Stomp.
In 3, 2, 1, stop! Ah, nothing. Oh, it's on his shoe.
Despite the impact of Robo Stomp's pneumatic foot, the burning C4 is still too stable to explode.
Well, our robot stomper performed admirably, and he still was not able to get the flaming C4 to explode. Look, you don't get much more real world than dropping the cooking pot or stomping on the burning C4, and nothing happened. It's just too stable. Clearly, we're gonna have to go to some ridiculous lengths to get this stuff to blow up. Exactly.
So, did someone mention dropping a really heavy object?
So why the anvil? Well, this testing is all about determining how shock sensitive a C4 is. When we drop this anvil, we're looking at something like 1,500 pounds per square inch being exerted on that C4. And that's quite an impact. And if that doesn't do it, that says a lot about the myth.
Indeed it does, because the anvil tops the scales at 90 pounds.
Looks like we have ignition, flaming C4 with an anvil dropped on it, and 3, 2, 1, go! Oh! Perfect landing, nice work. And no explosion. I don't know what's gonna blow this stuff up.
It looks like flaming C4 can take a lot of punishment without going bang.
I, for one, am thrilled by this result. We have rarely gotten to such a quintessential Wile E. Coyote moment as dropping a 90-pound anvil on a ball of flaming high explosives, and yet we got no explosion. This is very stable stuff.
Something Jamie totally agrees with.
We've burned it, we've smashed it and burned it. I don't know what else to do to it.
Let's shoot it with guns.
Sure, why not?
Back from testing, it's clear that of the 3 prototypes, Tori's flying guillotine came closest to completing a decapitation.
Halfway through the bone, that is promising.
But since close is not close enough to prove the myth, it's time to refine his design.
Okay, so we've left the bamboo forest and we're back at our Chinese palace. We have one more test to do. We want to see if we can actually achieve a full decapitation, a throw, slice, capture, retrieve. Because ultimately, we want to find out if this myth is plausible.
Tori's prototype, the salad bowl of death, slices as it spins against the neck. Can he improve it to sever a head completely?
One thing that I noticed on my guillotine is that it cut halfway through the neck bone. I think it's because I have a straight edge on my guillotine. So what I'm thinking is if I give it a saw edge, cut grooves in the blade, it'll help me cut through that bone. Hopefully this will give me that advantage to get a clean decapitation.
To increase the cutting power even further, he's also lengthened the pulling cable.
That way I have the guillotine spinning longer, and hopefully that'll give me more cutting power to get through that neck.
And if they can achieve a beheading, the final hurdle is to see if they can retrieve the head. So Tori's attached a see-through net to do just that.
All right, so I added this not because I want him to be a beekeeper, but that way I could see the head get cut off as it's happening.
No stranger to danger, poor old Buster steps up one more time.
Chin up, buddy. It's gonna be over before you know it.
And they're set to test.
All right, so I made the adjustments to my guillotine. It's time to see if it'll cut a head off.
Okay, we have the exact same circumstances as before.
Yeah, we've got a same diameter neck, same distance. We're ready to go.
All right, let's do it.
Like a mythical martial arts master, Tori takes the head clean off, and it's in the bag, literally on just the first go.
Oh, we got it! Look, his head's in the bag.
It's a major achievement, And it means Tori's improved design has now met all 3 benchmarks for the flying guillotine. That gory success could mean only one thing. There really could be something to this myth.
You guys, that was amazing.
I know not only did we create a real flying guillotine from scratch, but we achieved all the criteria for the myth.
Yeah, I mean, we landed it on the head, decapitate the guy, and retrieve the head in the net.
Yeah, we proved it on a basic level against a static enemy, but I don't think anybody's gonna be holding still in a real-life combat situation.
What do you have in mind?
A few ideas.
Oh, this should be interesting.
When used correctly, C4 can do this.
Wow, that was a rush.
And when used incorrectly, it can do this.
Burning beautifully.
But could a sudden sharp impact make this do this? So far, impact has failed to get burning C4 to explode. But is that all about to change?
So we dropped an anvil on the C4, nothing happened. Blunt force doesn't work. The only other thing that I can think of that is a really hard, fast impact on something, short of another explosive, is a bullet. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna fire a speeding bullet into burning C4.
Will that high impact be enough to cause an explosion?
The first bullet we'll be firing with is your basic .308 caliber sniper round. It's a 7.62 NATO, and it flies through the air at 2,600 feet per second.
That bullet at that speed will give a staggering force on the burning C4 of about 25,000 pounds.
Oh, she's going pretty good.
All right, I think I'm gonna fire. This is shooting a regular bullet at a flaming ball of C4.
No, I think you missed.
I missed. All right, let's try that again.
And with a few words of encouragement from the peanut gallery,
You're not nervous about making the shot, are you? Like you might miss, huh?
No,
Not at all?
nope.
Kind of makes you shaky when you're nervous.
All right, I think I'm ready to go. Safety's off.
Don't miss.
I'm not gonna miss. Shooting a flaming ball of C4 with a regular old bullet. Damn it looks like I missed it.
so with the score at C4 2, Adam zip, and Jamie too gun shy to take a shot, the guys turn to a pro.
I'm an okay shot. Not a great shot, I'm okay. I missed my first shot, nicked the second. What we're about to do is hand over responsibility for the shooting in this story to Sergeant Dan Powell, whose gun this is. Hopefully he'll make the shots much better than we could.
Sergeant Deadshot Dan nails the target on his first shot. The burning C4 bounces, but a big boom there ain't.
Well, there you have it. A normal bullet did not cause burning C4 to explode.
The next bullet we'll be firing with is this, a tracer round. It's got a bit of phosphorus in its base that allows the shooter to see the path the bullet takes. It also flies through the air at 2,600 feet per second.
A bullet striking with a force of 25,000 pounds, plus added heat from the burning phosphorus, means it's going to hit hard and hot.
You may fire when ready. Oh! That was a direct hit, no explosion.
Once again, the bullet impacts the C4, but
Nothing.
2 bullets down and still no detonation.
The last round we'll be firing is this, an incendiary round. Inside is magnesium aluminum alloy and barium nitrate, which ignite upon extreme impact. You see where I'm going with this?
It's down to this shot. Can the impact of a high explosive bullet finally make the difference to our burning C4 and make it go boom?
All right, fire it well.
Oh!
Nice.
That was
Bullseye.
beautiful. Nice shot, no explosion.
Really? No explosion?
I know what you're saying. You're saying, wait a minute, Mythbusters. I see the bullet hit flaming C4 and I see what looks like an explosion. But it's an incendiary round. That's what it's meant to do. In order not to confuse you, we filmed this high-speed footage of that same type of round hitting a blank metal plate. I think that makes the point nicely, don't you?
It does. The explosive round may have exploded, but the blazing C4 did not blow up.
So bullets won't detonate flaming C4.
Nope. We got to come up with something else.
We do.
Did the flying guillotine ever really exist? We may never know for certain, but one thing's for sure. It was allegedly an assassin's secret weapon that could be thrown over the neck, behead its foe, and then grab the head as a trophy. The MythBusters have proved their flying guillotine design works, but only against a stationary victim.
Look, head's in the bag.
Now they're taking it to the max by testing it in combat, and that means against an opponent, a scarier, more real-life opponent, because this time,
He moves. Just like any other real-life battle scenario, your opponent is going to be moving around to avoid the weapon, and this guy is no exception. He's got a mobile robotic base that we can control remotely. Try and hit me. Huh? Oh. That's not the only thing we have in store for Tori.
An assassin lurking in the shadows. This one's actually after him.
so Tori's up against a moving robotic enemy in front and a sneaky foe who can pop up any moment from behind. The ultimate real-world test.
Oh my gosh, this place is awesome. It's like a kung fu.
Playground?
Yes. All right, now what do I need to do to beat this obstacle course?
Okay, you have 2 minutes on the clock to defeat 2 enemies.
You have to stay behind this line, and your target is going to be moving.
Normally there's no rules in battle, but all right, let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the Grand Palace of Emperor Yongcheng, known in some circles as the M7 Workshop, we have the famous Kung Fu Killer, the Master of Disaster, Tori Belleci, and his shadowy, evil opponent, the Fajing King.
You ready? Let's do this.
Honor and myth all hang on the next 2 minutes.
Flying guillotine in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right from the outset, the robo-target's proving very elusive. It's a far cry from the original static assassin test.
Oh my God, this is like some crazy weird nightmare.
And then suddenly,
There's a guy behind you!
there's that sneaky assassin to contend with as well. But he doesn't last long.
You got him!
He wasn't decapitated, but he was at least disarmed. Then it's back to the main target. But before you can say guillotine, time's up.
3, 2, 1.
2 minutes are up without a single decapitation. But at least there was one knockout blow.
It's pretty hard hitting a moving target.
It looked hard, but hey, you got the one that popped up. Your reaction time was great.
Yeah, you definitely knocked out the assassin from the shadows.
That was so much fun. I mean, this was like living out my fantasies, having 2 attackers coming at me, trying to take them down. However, trying to hit a moving target, it's almost impossible.
This weapon has proved plausible as an assassination device, but no match for a foe in pitched battle.
Using the flying guillotine when you're under attack is not easy at all.
It's much better as a sniper weapon.
Oh my gosh, as a weapon of battle, it's not my weapon of choice.
So before we consign this myth to the dusty vault of history, let's leave the final word to Grant.
Despite that this guy looks like he's been defeated, he actually survived, and not only that, he won, because it's so difficult to deploy the flying guillotine in a combat situation. Definitely, this is plausible as an assassin's weapon, but in combat, no way.
Adam and Jamie have gone all out testing the 2-pronged military myth that burning C4 to cook with is safe,
It's burning beautifully. It's not bad, but it's not hot.
so long as you don't bash it while it's alight. To test that, they've tried dropping heavy objects on it.
Oh!
They've tried shooting it with high-impact bullets,
Oh! Nice shot. No explosion.
but nothing's detonated the burning C4. So in a last-ditch attempt to cause it to explode, they're ramping it up to the max.
Time to mix some thermite.
Thermite, that high-intensity extreme heat material that can cause explosive reactions.
Wow!
If anything's going to superheat the molecules in C4 enough to set it off, then it's thermite.
Thermite is a mixture of two different metal powders. One is the fuel, the other is the oxidizer. Usually that would be aluminum and iron oxide. Now when they're mixed together and ignited, they burn with extremely high temperatures, about 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
They've proved that C4 burning at just over 1,000 degrees won't explode. But what about at 4,500 degrees?
Here's how our rig is going to theoretically work. Up on the stand, I've got a massive flower pot filled with about 3 gallons of thermite. It will be ignited by a neon transformer, the wires of which are right here. Once ignited, that thermite will start to burn and it will start to drip. Where, you ask? Well, through the bottom of this flower pot, of course. The molten thermite will drip through the bottom of this flower pot right onto our C4. We, of course, will be waiting safely behind the blast chamber panels to see if the thermite makes the C4 go boom. The C4. There we,
Don't drop it.
I won't. Here we go.
So it'll be thermite burning at a super hot 4,500 degrees, pouring directly onto the C4 beneath it.
Call it whenever you're ready.
Okay, molten thermite dripping onto C4 in 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, it's lighting beautifully.
At 4,500 degrees, thermite burns with blinding intensity.
There it goes, pouring right onto the C4. It's a perfect hit. It's just behaving exactly like we wanted.
In spite of the extreme heat, there's no boom.
I can't think of anything else. It's like you're not setting off C4 by accident. That's all there is to it.
I think that's all there is to it. I think we've really done everything we can.
Pretty much.
Even when subjected to 4,500 degrees of pure heat, the C4 keeps its cool.
Everything's still intact. That is one hot pool of molten stuff in there.
I think we could cook weenies on it from here.
So, after all this testing, what exactly will make C4 go boom?
Well, the explosive in C4 is RDX, and you need a blasting cap to set off RDX. The mercury fulminate in a blasting cap moves really fast when it goes off. It's something like 100,000 feet per second. That's over Mach 100, which is really, really fast. And we just can't achieve those kinds of speeds with anything short of a blasting cap.
C4 was designed specifically to be a high explosive that was incredibly stable. And I gotta give it up. It is more stable than I ever thought possible.
So with the C4 scientific certainty sewn up, there's just one thing left to do.
Shall we call this?
I think it's time.
All right, on the first count that C4 can be ignited and heat your lunch, how do you find?
I find that confirmed.
On the second count that said flaming C4 should not be trod upon or dropped upon, how do you find?
I find that busted.
I love it. It's both busted and confirmed at the same time. Let's go back to the shop.
Okay. You know, in spite of the evidence, I just wouldn't stomp on that stuff.
No, neither would I.